Hello viewers, I am Mr. Dilip Kumar Pal, stands before you with the topic India's foreign policy post-colonial perspective. It is found in 6th semester DSE 3 paper. Today's topic is India's foreign policy post-colonial perspective or post-colonial position. Means after 1947, August 15, when India got independence or India got freedom from colonial power Britain, after that, what was the foreign policy of India? It means after getting independence, 1947 August 15 means India got freedom from colonial power. So after getting independence, what was India's foreign policy? It is found in 6th semester DSE 3 and the name of the paper is India's foreign policy in a changing world. But before I discuss Indian foreign policy post-colonial perspective, I want to inform my viewers that my channel number is @Dilip Kumar Pal 9375. Remember, if you search this channel in Google, you will find more than 450 videos, both English and Odia, relating to +2 first year political science to +2 second year political science, +3 first semester political science honors to +3 6th semester political science honors, and many topics relating to environmental studies of +3 first semester, which is common for +3 first semester, +3 first year arts, commerce and science students. And I want to inform my viewers that any video you want relating to political science from +2 first year to +2 second year, from +3 first semester political honors to +3 6th semester political honors, just write my name Dilip Kumar Pal and the name of the topic in YouTube. You'll get both Odia and English video. If you will get Odia video, do not be worried. Its English version is also there. If you will get English video, do not be worried. Its Odia video is also in YouTube. And I request my viewers that if you have subscribed my channel, benefit you will get. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe for future benefits. And those of your friends who are in above classes but they are ignorant about this channel, please make them aware about this channel. At least some students will be benefited. Remember, to give any help to anybody, it is a symbol of humanity. Let us start. India's foreign policy post-colonial perspective. It means after getting independence from colonialism, what was India's foreign policy? Let us start. In this world, every nation depends on other countries in some way or the other. In this world, every country depends on other countries in some way or other. It is impossible for a country to survive without having relations with other countries. In this world, every country depends on other countries in some way or the other. A country cannot survive if it will not have a relationship with other countries. A country is bound to have its relationship with other nations through foreign policies. From this natural law, India is not an exception. India also depends on other nations in different ways, and other nations are also depend on India in different way. So every nation is bound to have a relationship with other nations through its foreign policy, and India is not an exception. India has also a relationship with other nations. And after 1947, August 15, after getting independence, what was India's foreign policy? See, in this world, every country depends on other countries in some way or other. It is impossible for a country to survive without having relations with other countries. For this, every country has its foreign policy through which it maintains relations with other countries. India is not an exception. It has its foreign policy. Its post-colonial foreign policy or foreign policy after independence has been discussed below. In this world, no country can survive by itself. Every country will have to depend on other nations in some way or the other. India is not an exception. India also depends on some other nations, and other nations also depend on India in some way or the other. So every nation depends on other nations. For this, every nation has its foreign policy. Through foreign policy, a nation maintains its relationship with other nations. So foreign policy is possessed by all. So India has also its foreign policy. So after independence or after colonial days, what was India's foreign policy? Let us start. Period 1, 1947 to 1962. This is the first phase or period 1, 1947 to 1962. In this period, India's foreign policy was as follows. From 1947 to 1962, India's foreign policy was as follows. Number 1, as India was a newly independent country, it preferred to remain neutral without joining with American bloc and Russian bloc, and joined in non-aligned group, and preferred to have good relations with nations of both blocs, and tries to promote good relations between nations of both blocs. After 1947, the first principle of India's foreign policy is that as India was a newly emergent country, as India is a newly independent country, it did not want either to join in American bloc or to join with Soviet Russia bloc. As an independent country, India did not want to join with American bloc or Russian bloc. It wanted to remain non-aligned country. It joined with non-aligned group. By joining with non-aligned group, it maintains good relationship with both nations and tried to promote good relationship between nations of both blocs. So after 1947, the first principle of India's foreign policy is that India was not interested, or India did not join with any bloc, American bloc or Soviet bloc. It wanted to remain independent. It wanted to remain non-aligned. Without joining with American bloc or Russian bloc, India tried to remain neutral, non-aligned, and tried to have good relationship with both groups, both blocs, nations of both blocs, and tried to promote good relationship between nations of both blocs. Number 2, it preferred to abide by the rules of UNO, United Nations Organization, in its effort to maintain world peace, and provided troops for UNO's peacekeeping force, and took initiative on behalf of UNO in Korean, Vietnam, Belgian Congo crisis. The second principle of India's foreign policy after independence was that India tried to give respect to UNO. India tried to abide by the rules of UNO, which was trying for international peace. Even India provided military troops to UNO for its peacekeeping forces for the promotion of world peace, and it also supported UNO in its mission. It also took part in the mission of UNO, in the effort of UNO in the Korean crisis, Vietnam crisis, and Belgian Congo crisis. Number 3, it supported decolonization movement in world and end of racism in world, particularly in South Africa. Third principle of India's foreign policy is that it was supporting decolonization movement, means to make free those nations which are under colonial rule, and it wanted to end racism in world in general and South Africa in particular. Fourth, it took initiative to ban nuclear tests. India took initiative to ban nuclear tests because it will affect the environment. Now 5, it decided not to have much defense expenditure. Another India's foreign policy after 1947 was that it wanted not to have much defense expenditure because it was a member of NAM, non-alignment movement. So there is a principle of non-alignment movement that member nations should not spend much in defense. So on the basis of the principle of non-alignment, NAM principle, India did not give priority to defense expenditure. So this was the policy of foreign policy of India from 1947 to 1962. Then, but this policy 1947 to 1962 was criticized on some grounds. Number 1, failure of India's foreign policy during this period. India's foreign policy of 1947 to 1962 was criticized on some grounds. Number 1, India lost to China in 1962 war, where India lost 33,000 square kilometer and 38,000 square kilometer in Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh due to its weak defense military preparedness. Number 2, its decision to occupy Goa forcibly was also criticized. Number 3, its request UNO's intervention in Kashmir issue was also criticized. From 1947 to 1962, India had a different type of foreign policy, but this foreign policy was criticized on 3 major grounds. Number 1, as India had decided to spend a less in defense, so India lost in Indo-China War 1962, by which India lost 32,000 square kilometer in Ladakh, 38,000 square kilometer in Arunachal Pradesh from China. Still now China occupied 33,000 square kilometer and 38,000 square kilometer of Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh due to defeat of India by China. Number 2, India's decision to solve Goa crisis, its occupation to Goa forcibly from Portugal, was also considered as a wrong policy. Number 3, India's request to UNO to solve Kashmir problem, or India's request to UNO's intervention in Kashmir issue, bilateral issue, was also criticized. So we are clear what was the policy of India from 1947 to 1962. Now I'll discuss. Period 2, 1962 to 1991. 1962 TO2 1991. So during this period, what was the policy of India? Foreign policy of India? In this period, India decided to follow principles of realism in foreign policy in place of idealism. In this period, from 1962 to 1991, India decided to follow principle of realism, not idealism. It wanted to follow real things it wanted to adopt real situations in its foreign policy. It did not want to follow idealism. It wanted to make its foreign policy a realistic one. It wanted to include real matters, real factors in its foreign policy. Number 2, it raised defense expenditure for advanced weapons. Number 3, when China made nuclear test in 1964, India also wanted to be a nuclear power and made nuclear test in 1974 in Pokhran, Rajasthan. Then, 4th, it supported Palestine issue and the process of decolonization. 5th, it decided to follow pro-Soviet policy in order to protect it from America's support to Pakistan and signed 1971 peace treaty with USA. So in between 1962 to 1991, India had different foreign policy. It wanted to spend more on defense. Number 2, it wanted to acquire more advanced weapons because it lost a war with China in 1962. Then it wanted to be a nuclear power because China made a nuclear test in 1964. So India made nuclear test in 1974. It wanted to have good relationship with Soviet Russia because America was always helping to Pakistan. So India started to follow pro-Soviet policy. It wanted to have good relations with Soviet Russia. So in 1971, it signed Soviet peace treaty with Soviet Union. Then it supported Palestine issue in order to please Arab nations. It supported Palestine issue. It supported decolonization. So it was the policy of India from 1962 up to 1991. Then from third period, from 1991 to 1998. During this period, what was the foreign policy of India? It preferred to follow the policy of globalization. From 1991 up to 1998, India preferred to follow the policy of globalization. It tried to become world power in place of regional power. It wanted to be a world power in place of a regional power. Number 3, it stressed its economic growth. It gave priority to its economic development. Number 4, it stressed pro-Western policies. It wanted to have good relationship with Western nations. Then period 4, 1998 to 2003. 1998 up to 2003. What was the foreign policy of India? In this phase, India started to have good relationship with USA. Number 2, it started to form multiple alliances in place of non-alignment. In this period, India tried to join in different groups. India gave importance to multiple alliances. Then, stage 5 or period 5, 2003 to 2014. In this period, India tried to have good relationship with USA without losing its special relations with USA. Israel. In this period, India tried to have good relations with USA without losing its special relationship with USA. Number two, India for the first time agreed to keep its civil nuclear installations under IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, from 2008. Prior to 2008, India was not prepared to keep its civil nuclear installations under International Atomic Energy Agency. But in this year, India decided to keep its civil nuclear installations under International Atomic Energy Agency from 2008. Then, phase 6, 2014 to till now. Under the Prime Ministership of Narendra Modi, Indian foreign policy has following position. When Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India in 2014, India's foreign policy is as follows. Number one, Indian foreign policy stresses to have good relations with all neighboring nations. Indian foreign policy stresses to have good relationship with all neighboring nations, including nations in South Asia region. In South Asia, India tries to have good relationship with neighboring nations, especially Southeast Asian nations. In Southeast Asian region, there are mainly 8 nations including India. Excluding India, P for Pakistan, N for Nepal, A for Afghanistan, B for Bangladesh, then B for Bhutan, M for Mauritius, then S for Sri Lanka. India tried to have good relations with neighboring nations, including South Asian nations. Then, number 2, India wants to have good relations with East Asian countries. India tries to have good relations with East Asian countries. In East Asian countries, there are 7 countries like China, Japan, Taiwan, North Korea, South Korea, Mongolia, Macau. Again, India tries to have good relationship with Asian nations. Asian means Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Here there are 10 nations. Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Laos, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam. Number 3, it tries to have good relationship with Gulf nations or Middle East nations in between the area Egypt to Singapore. It wanted to have good relationship with Middle East or Gulf nations or nations within the area Egypt to Singapore. Then 4th, it follows the policy of India First policy. It means it gives priority to national interest. Number 5, it gives priority to relations with maritime neighboring countries like Sri Lanka, Mauritius, Seychelles, near Indian Ocean outreach area. Then 6, India gives priority to fast-track diplomacy, means to achieve the object quickly or within a specific time period. India in its foreign policy gave priority to fast-track diplomacy, means it wants to achieve the target object within a specific time limit. 7, it believes para-diplomacy. It believes para-diplomacy means it allows states and cities to have relations with other nations, states and cities directly. It allows its states and cities to have a relationship with cities and states of other nations directly. It is known as the para-diplomacy policy. Then 8, it wants assistance of developed nations to India's development. It stresses the assistance of developed nations for India's development. 9, it wants to build everything in India, discourage import. It wants to manufacture everything in India. It wants to discourage import. Then 10, it wants to make India at par with developed nations through principles like Digital India, Smart City, Swachh Bharat concept. It wants to make India at par with developed nations through principles like Digital India, Swachh Bharat, Smart City. 11. It wants to develop India in science and technology and make India self-reliant in every possible sphere in general and science and technology in particular. It wants to make India self-reliant in science and technology. It gives priority to science and technology. So, in this video, we discussed what was the foreign policy of India from 1947 till now. I have full confidence that this video will be helpful to 6th semester students. It will be helpful to them at that time whenever they will listen me and they will observe the whiteboard. Thank you. Don't forget to give your comment. Thank you. Have a good day.